There are some incredibly valuable lessons we can learn from the past if we have the ability to be objective and take a look at where we went wrong. And because of that, today we're going to take a look at price predictions in the past, taking a look over 5 years or so from 2020, 2021, and then even some things that are going on today about what we can learn or the lessons learned from all the mistakes from the price predictions. So we're going to talk about a lot of individuals that have made these predictions. And this is in no way just to throw shade at individuals. It's just a way to take a look at what was said before, why they were so exuberant in their price predictions, and of course, where we go from here and what we can learn. And of course, we're also going to take a look at even price predictions from people that I might not want to look at, which would be myself. So let's take a look at what this is. And actually, before we go into it, I will say, I will link this in the description. This is just a small handful of people who made predictions. And these are people who are in the public spotlight, who have great backgrounds and can share a lot of information. But this is just a tip of the iceberg of all the different price predictions that have been made in 2020, 2021, which almost every single one was an enormous flop. And we can see that there is no shortage of people who were wrong moving forward. So let's just jump into it and see where we land. So the first one, of course, is Plan B. And Plan B had a great thing, the stock to flow documentation that he had, the model. It was extremely accurate going into 2021, but at some point it fell off. Now, just so you know, the background and we'll talk about for all these individuals, Plan B, he's a quant analyst, created the stock to flow. It's among the most followed valuation frameworks for 2020-21. You cannot go to a crypto or specifically a Bitcoin video and not hear about stock to flow ratio and how accurate it was. So the prediction in December 2020 from Plan B stated the model, stock to flow, points to $100,000 to $288,000 this cycle. And you're going to see a narrative, which is pretty much 100K was the bottom floor. And we know that didn't work out. In November 2021, he said, okay, 98K floor model miss, stock to flow is still on track towards 100K. Again, the bottom here is like 100K. This, if you're not familiar with the stock to flow, extremely accurate until we get to around middle of 2021, and then in 2022, it just kind of fell off the face of the planet. And we can see here in the dots, that is the stock to flow, and then the colored dots themselves are Bitcoin prices, and you have the 200-week moving average in black, and then in gray, 2-year realized cost price. And you can just see how it did not go across the way. It actually went down. And 2022 was a pretty awful month, and that is just one that was wrong. Next one is from JP Morgan, Global Market Strategy. This is Nicolas. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but his background is institutional strategy team at, of course, JP Morgan, the largest bank in the world, one of them. Cross-asset research on flows, volatility, and digital gold framed Bitcoin for institutional clients, and they did a good job of bringing people on. In January 2021, in the beginning of the mighty bull run, they say the long-term fair value is near 146,000 if Bitcoin volatility converges with gold, which the volatility was way higher than that. May 2021 emphasized, okay, we're not going to hit 146K. This is a multi-year horizon, not a 2021 year-end target, but again, it is now September going into October of 2025, and we have not hit 146K. Roughly around the top would be 124K. So I don't know how long that was supposed to take, but here we are. Next one, this is the Guggenheim CIO, Chief Investment Officer Scott Menard, who has recently passed away. So rest in peace, Scott. But his background is the CIO of Guggenheim, multi-billion asset under management firm, widely quoted macro investor across TV and conferences. And this is what I talk about as far as like people in the know and being in front of the public. This would be one of those guys. In December of 2020, he said Bitcoin should be worth about $400,000. That was in December 2020. Fair market value, sure. But then there was a big switch. In April 2021, when we had one of our first tops around 64K, Scott was saying, you know what? There's going to be a pullback towards $20,000. Now, he was actually close on that one. We went from 64K to around 29,000, but 20K was not hit. And after that, everything kind of fell apart after November. And then, of course, we get to Mike Novogratz, founder, CEO of Galaxy Digital, former Fortress Macro PM and Goldman alum, frequent commentator on CNBC and MSNBC, and talking about institutional adoption, which he's still doing to this day. And Mike has made some reasonable calls. I think Luna was not the future of finance. Nice tattoo there. And here was his Bitcoin price predictions. In March 2021, he states Bitcoin will hit 100K by the end of the year. That was in March. April 2021 reiterated that same six-figure potential amid rising institutional interest. And now we have Anthony Pompliano. I think everybody knows him. Great guy. Pomp, co-founder of Morgan Greek Digital. He was saying the same thing. Bitcoin's going to hit 100,000. Again, that seems like the base case for everybody by end of 2021. And he kept saying it in 2021 as the six-figure base case of 100K. Then we have Max Keiser, the ultimate Bitcoin maximalist. His background is a broadcaster, longtime Bitcoin proponent, known for some pretty big, huge calls. And of course, he went off the rails. May to June 2021, it's going to be 220,000. October 2021, he doubled down on it. Said, you know what? A six-figure outcome remained likely. And that's just, shooting in the breeze. A six-figure could be 100K, which is the base case. And nobody hit that because Bitcoin topped out at 67K. Then Willy Woo, of course, on-chain analyst. Very smart guy. Made reasonable calls, but on this one, totally wrong. Background, on-chain researcher, and models were central to 2021 cycle analysts for traders and media, and they would seek him out, have him on different shows. But in December of 2020, he states, you know what, 200K looks pretty conservative. I think 300K is more like it. So if you're listening to this, you're like, 200K sounds good. And when I talk about these things, hopium is great. But when these things don't pan out, this is why I don't like price predictions. Then you start to tumble down. But don't worry, in a little bit, we're going to talk about why this is all good. April 2021, he maintained a six-figure thesis like everybody else, and off we go. Dan Morehead, like this guy, very level-headed gentleman, founder CEO of Pantera Capital, among the earliest U.S. crypto investors since 2013. And this just goes to show you that even though you get in early and you're right, doesn't mean you're right about everything. In March, he says, hey, and this is in March 2021, on track for 115K by August. In April 2021, he said, you know what? Still going to be 115K. And that was as we were going up to 64K. I think he maintained that. And I threw in Cathie Wood here because, and she's the founder of ARK Investment, is because people got this one wrong, I myself included. When we heard her say 500K, we thought it was 2021. But apparently she said, no. This is a multi-year thesis, not a 2021 year-end target. So I just wanted to clarify that I don't think Cathie said 500K by 2021. And the new ones are roughly bold as well. But we'll see how those all land out. And now, Mr. Banana Zone himself, Raoul Pal. He's the ex-Goldman macro strategist, founder of Global Macro Investor and Real Vision, known for liquidity frameworks. October 2021, Bitcoin is going way above 200K. Cycle could finish near 400K. Doesn't that sound great? And then November 2020 to 2021, as the price went up, his predictions went up. Evolved from 100K to 200K to 250K to 400K. And now here we are. So that would be Raoul Pal. And then one of my favorites, Tim Draper, he nailed it back in, this is in 2014 when Bitcoin was roughly $300 to $600 per coin. And he actually went to an auction and he picked up 30,000 Bitcoin at the U.S. Marshals auction. And because of that, everybody's looked to him for the answers. Unfortunately, he's been saying that Bitcoin will hit 250K since 2018. And he says it in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2, 3, 4, 5, and right now we're roughly 113K. So we'll see if Tim ever hits that number. And then finishing out the last ones, this is Michael Van de Poppe. And I featured him on a video where I talked about how this guy nailed the price prediction in 2021. And he did. And his background is trader, analyst, derivatives trader, MN trading CEO. And in December, he said, I'm targeting $70,000 by the end of 2021. And he even stated, okay, in 2021 it'll be 65,000 to 85,000 within the realm of possibility. And he hit it. He did a good job. And he wasn't totally over exuberant. But as time went on, he said, as a reminder, we're going to see extended cycles, and that's not the top. The top, 65 to 85K, is great for 2021, but in 2022, we're going to keep going, and 2023 will be even more so. And that was totally woefully incorrect, as we saw a massive reduction in Bitcoin's price by over 77%, going from 67K down to around 17,000 or so. And lastly, to round it all out for everybody who was wrong, Robbie Wolff, Digital Asset News, who his background is a guy that talks to his computer while people actually listen. History, U.S. Army medic, real estate investor, early crypto investor from 2017. And I had to dig through this and see all my price predictions, because I didn't just give you wrong Bitcoin price predictions. I gave you wrong price predictions on a lot of altcoins, going from Ethereum to Theta to Celsius to Voyager and across the board. So I am not innocent, and I will stand up the front and say, yeah, I didn't hit that. So my price prediction was 150K. And then, of course, I did what everybody else did, was say, well, maybe 100K by the end of the year. And you can see on January 7th, when Bitcoin was 38K, I made a prediction 150K. And then, of course, as time went on June 30th, I said, well, maybe 130, 150. And that didn't happen. Ethereum, I thought would go to 10K. Then I revised that down to 8 to 10K, and we only hit about $5,000. So wasn't even close. Chainlink, I thought on January it would hit $35. And funny enough, it actually hit $34.89. So I should have just stuck with that price prediction, which is over here on the right-hand side. You can see 34. But then I got bold and said, you know what? Chainlink can go to 75 to 100 bucks because it's a great oracle and everybody uses it, and it's indispensable. And that was totally incorrect. And we topped out at $52. Cardano, I said would go to $3 on January 7th, and guess what? It did. Unfortunately, on June 30th, I said, you know what? It can go to 5 to 7. Totally incorrect. And then down the board, I don't think I got anything. I got some things that were close, I would say, like, let's see. Theta, I called $10, and it went to $9.24. It's not bad, but then I kept adjusting the prices. Celsius, an awful one, that's collapsed. Although Celsius, I thought I'd go to $20, and actually, I think we hit almost 8, so still horrible. And then EOS, Uniswap, Voyager, Aave, just awful stakes. Bitcoin Cash, XRP. So again, I am not innocent. I made some bad price predictions. So what did we learn from this? As I've been talking, this is why this is important to take a look back and discover what we have to move forward and how we shouldn't repeat the same mistakes. So you will notice that when I talk about price predictions, first of all, I don't like them. I think they're quite useless. They're great for hopium, but that's pretty much about it. And as time goes on, I just try to fade them out. I said, look, if you want to do a price prediction, here's my price prediction. Bitcoin, by the end of this cycle, we'll talk about that in a bit, will be between $4 and $550,000. Two things. One, I can never be wrong. And two, people's expectations don't get too crazy because it can fall within that. And I think we do something like that. I know some people hate it, but you know, how are those price predictions working out for you so far? I'm sure some of you have said, you know what? There's a couple guys that nailed it in the short term. In the long term, I just don't like them anymore. And the second thing I learned from these price predictions are as such. We need to take a deeper look at the indicators and stick with those indicators and pull the trigger and start selling and not round tripping. And some of the best advice has been said over and over and over again. We just forget about it. Here's three gentlemen you should listen to: Nathan Rothschild, Bernard M. Baruch, J.P. Morgan. Here's what they said. Nathan Rothschild, multi-billion, trillion-dollar family, and he states this: fortunes are made by buying low and selling too soon. Bernard M. Baruch said the same thing. I made all my money by selling too soon. And J.P. Morgan, the original, stated, I made my money by selling too soon and never buying the bottom. We're so obsessed with buying the absolute bottom that we think that's the only way to do things. And we are so obsessed with hitting the absolute top, and that is not the way to do things. You want to be a billionaire, here's 3 right here you should follow. So when I talk about indicators, here's a prime example of when we should have listened to one of them at least. This is Ben's YouTube channel. I was perusing to see what in the past, came across this little gem, the Pi Cycle Top on April 11, 2021. I watched the video again, quite interesting. Pi Cycle Top is one of the indicators I'm looking at. And on April 11th, when it actually converged, the price of Bitcoin was $59,988. And at this point in April, we're like, that's not the top, because the top can't be $59,988. It has to be at least 100K, up to 400K, or if you're a fan of Tim Draper, 250K. But what I'm asking here for you is this. If you would have followed the advice of these billionaires, which did pretty well for them, and sold at $59,988, even though we still went up a little bit in April, we dropped 50%, and then we went up again in November to 67,000. Wouldn't you have been a little bit happier if you would have sold some? Now, of course, there's some people who say, I'm never selling my Bitcoin. And for you, that's fine. It's up what you want to do. But I think there's some people that maybe have some bills to pay, that maybe want to do some upgrades, that maybe want to live their life, that maybe want to give their family a little bit better things. And for those people, if you're just Bitcoin heavy and you want to do those things and sell some, that's totally your right. And that's why I'm talking about these things today, so we can learn. So we talked about price predictions. We know indicators we should check out. I'll give you a list of what I'm looking at in a bit. But the next thing I'm looking at is what's the next big price prediction, and you know what that is. The 4-year cycles are dead. And that's what everybody is saying. I personally don't believe that, but I could be wrong. Less like I was wrong on a bunch of different price predictions. And we can see why we think that the Q4 of 2025 and 4-year cycles are going to extend. It's called the extended cycle. Why do people believe that? Well, there's multiple reasons, but one of the things you can take a look at is the Bitcoin market cycle bottom and how many days it took. So in the first one, this is like 2009, 2011, it took 318 days to go up a maximum amount. And people made a lot of money if they would have sold. Now, if we go from 2011 to 2013, we had 747 days. And of course, you can see how things got extended a little bit. You're like, well, that's just 2013. What about 2017? Oh, look at that. It actually increased even more so, 1,067. So you take a look at these 3 time frames and say to yourself, I guess that things are extending, and that's why people thought about, like Michael Van de Poppe and a host of others, that we were going to keep going up and there was going to be extended cycles. Well, guess what? It didn't happen. 2021, it took 1,059 days, and that's to get to November. If you're looking at April, which it really wasn't the top, that's even less days. And of course, now where we're at 1,052 days. Now, does that mean that we can't go past 1,067 days? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't believe we're going into Q3, Q4 of 2026. Okay, I can see Q1, maybe Q2. But again, it all comes down to, remember those 3 billionaires we talked about? Maybe you take some profits along the way, because nobody ever went broke taking profits. So what do you look at? Here's some indicators I'm looking at quite closely. If you just want to be like, you know what, just give me the general stuff. Cool, there's a website, a link in the description. It's called CoinGlass. And this is the top 30 indicators, like the Pi Cycle Top we just talked about, Quail Multiple, ETF to Bitcoin ratio, 2-year multiplier, RSI 22-day, Bitcoin dominance, MVRV ratio, and so on and so forth. And right now, it is telling us none of those indicators have been hit. Hold 100%, 0% sell. That's the first one. The second one I like to look at is Ben's website. There's a link in the description, 10% off the first month, and a good amount of things that are on his website are free. So I'd recommend just signing up just to get the free stuff. And if you want to advance into other stuff like these crypto risk indicators, I'm going to blow this up, it's great because it takes a lot of these different indicators and rolls them in as an aggregate, and you can just see how price metrics, on-chain metrics, and social kind of converge into giving us like a general idea. Right now, not too much is popping off. We're building things. What did this look like at the last blow off top in 2021? It looked like that. And that's what things should look like when we get to where we're at a very top. How about 2017? Looked like that. And 2013 looked like that. Now, social metrics wasn't being tracked, but it's looking pretty good. And the last thing I'd recommend is sign up for my website, which is 100% free. Did I say it's free? It's free and it'll always be free. And the one thing I want you to take a look at is, there's some good ones in here. This is on Module 1, Crypto Critical. How to avoid scams, portfolio storage diversification, don't get scammed. Diversify your storage. I personally have them in custodial services. I have them on cold storage devices, and I have them everywhere. But the one I want you to look at is this one. When I'm selling 50 to 80%, I should rename that because that's going to be 50 to 95% or 50 to 100% of everything. And we take a look at specific indicators and what I think is going to be quite important and use as an aggregate to sell as time gets close. But that's it for today. So look, there's a lot of information to go over. I'm sorry I threw a lot at you. Everything you can find as far as the links are in the description. That's it for this one. So if you like today's video, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing, especially in Q4. Things are gonna get pretty crazy. That's it for today. Thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next one.